As in most Australian cities, childcare is a chronic problem in Newcastle. Many people wait years to get their child into an established childcare centre, and sometimes the delay is so long the child is in school before a place becomes available. Mothers who don't work and just need care for their children intermittently have been a particularly neglected group because Newcastle hasn't had an occasional care centre. Today, the federal government announced that funding of up to $352,000 to buy land and build a 28-place occasional care centre has been approved. The centre will be built in the Wallsend area, but although Newcastle City Council has several sites in mind, it's remaining tight-lipped about their location. Once established, the Commonwealth will provide a yearly grant of around $23,000 towards the cost of operating the centre. Coordinator of Welfare Services, Kay Tolty, says a centre of this kind is desperately needed.
So that the parents who are at home have got nowhere to leave the children to have time off to shopping, going to doctor's appointments and that, just having a bit of respite from the children. The children are limited to 12 hours a month, which means virtually a morning a week. There are morning and afternoon sessions, probably staffed by 3 staff, and we get some subsidy from the federal government in regard to the staffing, and then a fee for service, which would have to be worked out.
The Airmen had been in a Wingill single-engine aircraft on a low-level training run from Williamtown to Coffs Harbour. The RAAF began emergency procedures when the aircraft failed to make a compulsory radio check. It also failed to keep a planned rendezvous with another aircraft. And later, a farmer reported seeing aircraft wreckage near Mount Seaview, 60 kilometres west of Wauchope. It's believed the plane came down this afternoon sometime between 12:30 and 1 o'clock. The wreckage was found at 1:30 by a Chinook helicopter crew. A National Safety Council helicopter and a fixed-wing aircraft also searched. Doctors confirmed there were 2 bodies in the wreckage. The crash site is being guarded tonight, and the RAAF accident investigation team from Canberra will go to the area tomorrow as soon as light and transport over the rugged terrain permits.
Members of the New South Wales Police Special Investigation Unit and the Corrective Services Internal Investigation Unit went to the jail at lunchtime to question a number of people regarding the alleged assault. The inquiries follow the controversial charging of 2 Maitland prison officers earlier this month. Investigators entered the prison and, after a brief meeting, custodial staff walked out. Executive prison officers are manning the jail and police are patrolling the perimeter. Chairman of the Corrective Services Commission, Peter Hackett, is quoted as saying the investigations are essential as the matter is before the court.
It's believed an electrical fault may have caused the blaze. The owner, Helen Stanscliffe, says she awoke at midnight to find a small fire in the main bedroom. She thought it had been extinguished and went to sleep in another room, only to be awoken a few hours later by flames. Today, all that is left is the charred remains and a few clothes.
Organisers are confident that before the show concludes tonight, a record number of people will have passed through the gates. They say the old favourites of Sideshow Alley have been popular, as has the packed centre ring program. The highlight of events there has been the New South Wales Show Jumping Championships. The Speed Championships and B-grade jumping events were held over the last 3 days, while some of the best horses and riders in Australia will be competing today in the A-grade division. This year has also seen a boom in dairy and beef cattle entries, so much so that the agricultural side has been extended. Show President Clem Varley.
We've had to extend our cattle section to the Saturday following the show. During the show, the first 4 days have been put over to dairy cattle, and there's been a tremendous roll-up for that, and especially the Holston Friesian classes are virtually an Australian show in that regard. And then on the following Saturday, on Saturday the 5th of March, we're holding a beef day here in total.
According to Mr Varley, the rural aspect of the show has received more prominence this year with a new emphasis on education.
Although we publicise the show with all the razzmatazz and farnarkling and all the various side shows that are on and what have you, we do see ourselves very much as an educator and a fun educator. And we've gone out, particularly with the schools coming here, it's put us on our mettle now to provide them with some educational aspects of the show and of rural Australia that otherwise they wouldn't see.
The show is a unique environment, providing as it does a blending between the city and the country. And so, along this year's education theme, rural lectures will play an important part, giving some city-bound youngsters a taste of farm life. Students from Tokal Agricultural College are among those providing face-to-face encounters with rural life and giving a young audience a chance for some very hands-on experience. But the educational profile is not the only new look for the show. This year, the show committee received a record sponsorship of almost $200,000, which has been spent on renovation and repainting of grandstands, pavilions and entrances.
Meanwhile, while Mr Griner was on the election trail on the Central Coast, his wife Catherine was trying to win votes in Newcastle on her own. She's part of a trend for the wives of politicians to take a much more prominent role in election campaigns. And in the United States, when presidential candidate Gary Hart created controversy with Donna Rice, a saying emerged that for politicians, wives were more important than credit cards. Simply don't leave home without one. But in Australia, far from just being at their side, women like Mrs Griner are sharing the workload.
There's a large state to cover in just 4 weeks, so Nick and I are spending time together but also coming out and campaigning separately.
Today she was hard on the hustings, making sure that the Liberal message gets through.
My main message really to the community at Newcastle is that we believe that they've been forgotten by the Labor Party and that they've been ignored over a number of years. And the message from the community back to me is very much one of great concern about the state of their roads, the state of their health system, both here in Newcastle and Morisset, and the state of their schools.
Also in Newcastle was State National Party leader Wal Murray. He's confident that the National Party will win both the seat of Mile Lakes and the Upper Hunter. Mr Murray campaigned heavily today on the issue of roads and claims the state of the National Highway between Ourimbah and Dawson is an engineering fiasco.
It is an enormous bungle. It is the epitome of the lack of supervision and management that is going on all across New South Wales. And when you see the cuts that are having to be made in the cement, the fact that the cement was not locked together indicates that there was just total incompetence in the whole of that operation.
The raw material for the mammoth Operation Good News 88 was stacked into a Cardiff warehouse today, the daunting pile not diminishing the organisers' optimism. While differences between denominations are often highlighted, there is one thing they all agree on, the importance of the Bible. And that agreement, organisers say, is what is making Operation Good News a success. For the past 12 months, more than 30 denominations have been working together towards the communal aim, to put a Bible in every household in the nation. 2 New Look Bibles will be given away, and Hunter Regional Coordinator Craig Leggett says it's simply a case of moving with the times.
That's been done intentionally. Many people have expressed a dislike for the black-looking book. They feel embarrassed by the appearance of it, and so it's been dressed up to look just like any other book. It's attractively covered and attractively presented.
But the content's the same?
The content's exactly the same, yes.
These Bibles are, in fact, only the New Testament. Organisers say it would have cost too much to print the whole thing. They also contain some additional material designed to help explain the contents. In order to provide the Bibles free, they were printed using mainly volunteer labour, with the remaining cost being borne by the churches. According to Craig Leggett, however, the project is worth every cent.
Well, I think if people read the material that we're presenting to them and take notice of it and obey what it says, then our society is going to change for the better.
From here, the Bibles will be distributed to zone coordinators and then on to local church groups. Organisers say every home in Newcastle should be able to boast one of these within the next 3 months.
Getting up. Now it goes
In the
to
past,
Williams.
it's been the Newcastle representative team that's taken on the Sydney Premiers. Last year, Newcastle played Parramatta, going down to the Eels 34-20. This time, with Newcastle playing in the Sydney comp, they are fitter, bigger and more prepared than ever before. In trial matches so far, the Knights have lost to Cronulla 32-0 and clicked last weekend at Toronto, thrashing Illawarra 34-4.
Well, you keep it in perspective, David, and against Cronulla it was one of learning, against Illawarra it was one of learning, against Manly too it's one of learning, and hopefully we're going out to try and win it and to improve our performance for the competition that lies ahead.
With the competition starting the week after, you couldn't have a better trial match.
Well, it is, yeah. We've got the premiers and the past premiers week after each other, so but that's the competition that we're in, and before, we've got sides like Canterbury to play in South Sydney, who are awesome in the forward power strengths, Balmain will be the same. That's the competition that we are in, and every side is certainly not an easy 2 points, and hopefully we've got to be able to be at that level, to get ourselves at that level that neither are we.
Will you be giving everyone a run?
This is what was left of 42 Elizabeth Street after yesterday's fires. Today the site is far worse. According to owner Helen Stanscliffe, a fire had broken out around midnight Wednesday in a mattress. It was extinguished, but another fire started several hours later. This time the fire brigade was called, but was too late to save the Weatherboard-and-Dine cottage, and only one room was left intact. That is, until early this morning. Neighbours Elaine Hordley and Maria Shergott were woken by smoke at 3:30. Maria says it was a frightening case of deja vu.
I jumped and I got taken my telephone. I ringed the wow,
Yep.
I think quick, it's a fire, that 42 Elizabeth Street like yesterday.
The fire was only prevented from spreading further down the row of closely packed houses by the concrete construction of the home next door.
Is the fire, is go. This roof and my neighbor roof and go to my roof. It's a big fire.
Yeah, it's a big.
Today, police scientific and arson squads are investigating the cause of the blaze, although they say they have not ruled out the possibility of reignition. However, District Fire Officer Norm Parker, who attended both blazes, says the fire brigade made no mistake.
We went through with lines of hose from the front to put the fire out. After the fire's out, any walls that was concealing any sort of embers, overhaul. We pull the walls back, open the plaster up. In this case, there was very little plaster left on the walls. The room's absolutely flooded. Any material, clothing, anything like that it was all burnt anyway. So it was just completely flooded with water.
So you'd be very surprised if it was reignition?
I find it very hard to believe.
It's easy, wasn't it? Is that it?
mechanical failures.
Newcastle FIA Secretary Len Corrigan says big changes on the BHP board mean new thinking. Mr Corrigan says the company is moving towards mini-mills and the serious industrial action now could accelerate that process. For 6 months now, relations had been good. Efficiency problems attributed to mechanical teething troubles, breakdowns and not strikes. Now, there's a fear that the workers' image could be irreparably tarnished.
This sort of disputes that are going on, if they continue to go on, and we were happy here for a while in the last 6 months because the disputes have reduced greatly, but this one is a big dispute and it's going to be worse. It's costing $5 million a day, and the BHP need an excuse like that to build more mini mills than what they are. They're having troubles at Ruddy Hills at the moment because of the environment situation, but they'll build the mills, whether it's at Ruddy Hill or in that area somewhere, and then they'll continue to build them. And they've all already indicated over the past that they are interested in those sort of things, and people say, well, the scrap, you've got to have scrap to run a mini mill. And we've asked that direct question, where will you get the scrap? They said, import it. So in other words, it's not going to help us at all. We hope that this can be resolved, and we hope they get into the Industrial Commission and get it all thrashed out there.
The $1.2 million linear accelerator took several hours to unload, but will be ready for use in the oncology unit by mid-June. Unit Director Dr. Jim Denham says the first accelerator was installed in 1985 and for the past 18 months has treated up to 70 patients a day. The 1983 NBN Television raised the money for the first accelerator. Now community groups such as the Hunter Valley Cancer Appeal Committee and the state government have funded the second one. The old and new machines produce X-ray and electron beams. The electron beams treat superficial tumours, as found on the skin, in the glands or breasts, while the X-ray beams treat deep-seated tumours such as those in the lungs or bowel. Dr. Denham says the second accelerator is vital in the development of the oncology unit.
It represents a very significant step in the transition process from what started off a couple of years ago as just a small radiotherapy unit into what very shortly will become a major integrated multidisciplinary cancer treatment centre.
Last year, he says 700 new cases of cancer were registered at the centre for treatment with the accelerator.
Our treatment statistics indicate that we're curing a high proportion of localised cancers.
So we can expect more lives to be saved as a result of the installation of this second machine?
No question about it.
$650 Hunter students were among up to 70,000 across the country who saw the lecture beaming out from Sydney. It was organised by the Institution of Engineers, OSAT and the Education Department. The inaugural OSAT lecture has been described as the highlight of the institution's bicentennial conference being held in Sydney. Rutherford was one of 17 centres to receive the lecture, which was designed to give students an educational and entertaining introduction to engineering and encourage more to consider engineering as a career. Is there a great shortage of engineers?
Yes, Belinda, there is a shortage in Australia of engineers compared to most of the other industrialised countries. We're rather poor relations, and so the engineering fraternity has been concerned that young people should understand what an exciting profession engineering is.
Mr. Yeoman hopes similar lectures will be held annually.
We are people who deal with machinery largely and not people, and so in the community I don't think there's a great deal of knowledge about engineering.
How unique is this lecture today?
Fumble along with the ball, you're allowed to just run back against the player. It's good hip and shoulder.
It was a clash the local crowd will never forget. Nelson Bay's union team, the Gropers, versus the local league side, the Eels. All proceeds from the event went to the Matthew Dawson appeal, which has raised nearly $50,000 for the young beneficiary who watched from the sideline. The money will go towards building a specially equipped house for the 20-year-old quadriplegic, confined to a wheelchair since May last year, after an under-20s rugby league game went tragically wrong. The appeal is a community effort, which Matthew is thankful for.
Well, I think it's a great thing that they've all come together and helped me, which makes me strive, you know, for better things in the future and that. And I think it's fantastic, you know.
Well, what about the future? What are you going to do?
Well, I'm not sure at the moment because it's early days, but you know, hopefully I'll get myself a job and set up in maybe a small business or something like that. It's just time will tell, you know. It's early days, and I'm not quite sure what I want to do yet, but you know, I'll think about it.
Gold Coast developer Gordon Pacific began eyeing off the Anglican-owned campsite last year. Built 40 years ago, Yondeo has served the young parishioners of the Newcastle Anglican Diocese as a camping centre. Hampered by the lack of fresh water supplies, limited money to improve rundown accommodation blocks and an unsafe beach, the Council of the Diocese believes the offer to swap and sell is a godsend. Subject to approval by the Lake Macquarie City Council, Gordon Pacific plans to develop Australia's largest tourist resort, including a 5-star motel, golf courses, tennis courts and a marina. The deal includes the exchange of the 34-hectare Yondeo site for 37 nearby lakeside hectares, as well as the compensation payment of $1.5 million to help build another camp centre. During Anglican services throughout Newcastle today, parishioners were officially given the news and told that their council had rejoicingly accepted the offer. Archdeacon Ely believes the deal will benefit all those concerned.
There's great rejoicing that the money that will become available at the sale of Yondeo will enable us to put up good buildings and to have reticulated water, which hasn't been available. And there will still be enough money to invest to support people in youth ministry as staffing for development of youth ministry.
Mr Beard made a special visit to the Cardiff High School today to congratulate students there for hard work. Recognition was given to the school's 1987 Ducks, Rhett Newman, who gained an aggregate of 455 in the HSC and earned himself a place in the state's top 2%. However, Mr Beard says some students aren't as successful because they take days off. To combat the problem, the Homeschool Liaison program has been extended to the Hunter region. The program employs officers to visit schools and find out which students stay away and then visit their parents to identify the children's problems. Mr Beard says children are often truant because of disorganisation at home.
Maybe mum hasn't got herself organised to get to breakfast and make sure the kids are dressed and off to school. That's just a fairly basic problem, a problem of family disorganisation.
How bad can the problem be? How many days off may a student take?
Well, it can go from a day every week or a day every couple of weeks, maybe, you know, it can be for batches of time. It can even be that a child might be away for several weeks at a time.
He says very few parents oppose visits by homeschool liaison program officers, but some do see them as an intrusion. Ultimately, though, what happens if parents don't ensure their children go to school?
Right, if the parent just doesn't respond to this approach, then we can take action through the courts, and we're quite prepared to do that. Parents who have children between the ages of 6 and 15 must ensure their children attend school. If they don't do that, then our homeschool liaison officers will in fact prosecute.